Hi, this is Sangeeta Gopi from MedCity International Academy and welcome to our IELTS video series. Today in this video, we'll have a look at part 3 of speaking. In our previous videos, we did discuss part 1 and 2 of speaking. We did see sample with the examiner feedback. In today's video, you will see how a candidate performs in part 3 of speaking, which is two-way discussion. The examiner here is Srijana and the IELTS candidate is Amal. So let's see how he performs.
Now we'll move on to the last part of speaking test, which is the discussion part.
Okay.
Do people in your country like to visit historical buildings?
Yeah, I think of course most of the Indian likes to visit historical places because India is a place where we have a abundant history about Indian independence and a lot of things, and there are many historical monuments like Taj Mahal, Qutub Minar, which people used to visit during their holidays, and moreover most of the colleges and schools used to go to such places to show people and the students what the value we are giving to such buildings in our life.
What other information can you get from visiting historical buildings?
I think that while visiting historical buildings, the most important thing we get is about the history. We could know more about the history, and more than that, most of the things we are studied in books, so we could get a detailed look on what and how it is.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, of course, because all of us have studied Taj Mahal in our history, but no, most of them haven't seen. But when we visit Taj Mahal for real, we could see the correct figure and the detailed work in Taj Mahal, because in books we study that it's full of white color, but now while moving to see Taj Mahal, we can see that there are lots of yellow spots due to acid rain, so we can know more about that and the archaeological works that have been done while building Taj Mahal.
Okay. What kinds of buildings are popular in India now?
I think in India nowadays modern buildings are more popular, because even though people do care to traditional historical buildings, people give more value, or while building new buildings they give more importance to build modern building, because the houses in India now built are more modernized because they are more eco-friendly and use modern techniques rather than the old ones. Okay. Because the way of thinking and living of people have changed to a modernized way.
Okay. How do people in India feel about old buildings?
While looking at the older buildings, most of the Indians feel proud, because most of the buildings in India were built by our ancestors. Like for example, great buildings like Taj Mahal, Qutub Minar, and some big palaces built. For example, Mysore Palace and all. So while looking at that, we could know about our ancestors or the older generation were capable of doing. And nowadays the government is implementing more fund to preserve such buildings. Then only the next generation can see such things, I think.
Okay. Can natural calamities affect people living in tall buildings?
Yeah, there are some natural calamities like earthquake and tornado, cyclone, which are most affected by people living in tall buildings, because while an earthquake occurs, they can't move from that place very easily. But whereas in cases like flood, it is easy for them because they are in tall buildings, like something on 9th or 10th floor. So water will not reach their room, so they are safe inside, I think.
What will they do if they are stranded?
Yeah, I will tell you about a recent situation that happened in Kerala, that we are facing a massive flood during the 2018 and 19, and there have been many people who have been stranded in such tall buildings, and the Navy and the Fire Force have rescued most of them very easily. And there are some youngsters and other peoples who care good value for social service. They also took part in such things. I think that even if they are stranded in tall buildings, they can be rescued.
Are expensive buildings a waste of money?
No, I don't think so, because most of the expensive buildings nowadays are made for a reason. Because I'll talk about a building like the office of Google and house of Ambani, which are one of the most expensive buildings, though they are getting more productive from that house, so that I don't think that they are more a waste of money, and it is a way to show how rich they are. So people are nowadays thinking that we can build big buildings which are costly or expensive, so that others will know how rich we are.
Okay. Do you think it's worth the money to preserve old buildings?
Yeah, I'm sure, because some of the buildings like Taj Mahal and Qutub Minar, it's hard for us to maintain and to rebuild. So the government is nowadays implementing more fund in order to preserve, and there have been many programs conducted by many NGOs and WHOs, so that such buildings all over the world can be preserved, so that the next generation can see as it is now.
Okay. Is it important to design a building?
Yeah, I think it's very important to design a building. As I am a mechanical engineer, I think that while building a small building, if it is a small building or a big building, we have to detail design it, because then only it will withstand the loads and the calamities occur. And only by designing we can build a modernized and a good architectural building. So it's important to design the building.
Okay. What aspects of culture do old buildings reflect?
Most of the old buildings in the world shows us the tradition and the way they lived, and it also includes the artifacts that have been used by the time they were living. And it also there are in some buildings there have been sculptured in the walls of the buildings that the wars they have fought and the way of their living. So I think that it's important to view such things, then only we could get a complete image how we reached in these current scenarios.
Okay. What has been the biggest change in your hometown in last few years?
My hometown is Kannur. So I think that the major change that took place in my town is the roadways. That most of the roadways has been changed. That the road through my home, that passing through my home was a local road or a state highway. Now it's made into a new one, and now it's a 2-lane road. So I think that more than that, the new trekking places like Palakkad and Paidalmala I have seen improvised, and there are many entertainment things like malls and fairs have been set up for the last 10 years, I think.
Okay, thank you.
If you look at the marking criteria when it comes to IELTS speaking, I would say that his fluency was quite good. His pace was good, it wasn't too fast. You will also have noticed that there weren't any prominent hesitations. So he has a high chance of scoring a band 6 when it comes to fluency. The next criteria is lexical resources. Again, I would say he had good vocabulary in use, but some were quite repetitive. Certain words he used when it came to discussion were archaeological words, modern buildings, eco-friendly, earthquake, tornado, cyclones, preserve, rescued. I also spoke about repetitive usage. If you've noticed, he used Taj Mahal and Qutub Minar quite very often in his answers. Also, words like historical buildings and sisters were repeatedly used. What you can try to do is try using different word forms. Of course, you cannot use different word forms of Taj Mahal and Qutub Minar, but historical buildings could have been said in different ways. One example would be to say buildings of historical importance. So instead of repeatedly saying historical buildings, he could have tried this, but fairly his vocabulary is quite good. So let's say between band 6 and 6.5. His pronunciation was also good. Most of his words could be well understood. So let's say between a band 6 and a 7. But grammar is, I would say, an area that he needs to work on. Though he did try to use a range of grammatical aspects, they weren't quite accurate. So he would fall somewhere between band 5 and 6 when it comes to grammatical range and accuracy. So let's have a little more detailed look into his speaking. Now the first question Srijana asked was on this. Do people in your country like to visit historical monuments? He did take the example of Taj Mahal and Qutub Minar here, and he said These are buildings which people used to visit during the holidays. Used to denotes a habit in the past. So, by saying this, he means that people did go to Taj Mahal and Qutub Minar, but they no longer visit these monuments, which is not true. So he shouldn't have used this particular phrase there. Instead, he could have said that people visit Taj Mahal and Qutub Minar during the holidays. Another usage he had where he's quite confused in grammar is when he said, we could know more about history. And the question Srijana asked here was, what other information can you get by visiting historical buildings? So he said, we could know. Again, could is a past possibility. So instead, it would have been better if he used, we will know or we can, but not could. He also said, most of the things we are studied in books when he spoke about history. So the corrected usage here would be, most of the things we have studied in books or in school. There was another good usage when he gave an example regarding collecting information from historical buildings. He compared learning about Taj Mahal from books, and he said, but when we visit Taj Mahal for real, which is a good usage. That means apart from knowing about this monument from books or other materials, when we actually visit this particular monument. Another good aspect of his speaking is that he made sure that he conveyed his opinion clearly first wherever required before explaining it any further. For example, in the third question that was asked to him, what kinds of buildings are popular in our country now? He said, I think in India, modern buildings are very popular. So this is stating his opinion clearly first and then going on to explain more about it. Similarly, on the fourth question asked to him, how do people in India feel about old buildings? He said, while looking at old buildings, most of the people of our country feel proud. Now here too he has clearly mentioned the answer, the response to the question first, and then he went about giving explanation about it. So this is one good thing that you should make note of when answering part 3 of speaking. So wherever required, make sure you mentioned your opinion clearly or your response clearly first and then go on to explain it. Another aspect, I would say, where the meaning was confusing when he had a usage. Now, the question asked was, can natural calamities affect people living in tall buildings? Now, he used good examples here where he tried to expand what natural calamities are, and he said earthquakes, tornadoes, cyclones. So these are good things to say. But he went on adding, which are most affected by people living in tall buildings. So he tried to say that people are affected by these natural calamities, but when he constructed his sentence saying earthquakes and tornadoes are most affected by people living in tall buildings, the meaning conveyed is how people impact these natural calamities. So see how meaning changes with the use of a wrong word. So when he said which are most affected by people, the meaning was completely changed. So these are things you need to be careful about when speaking. Also, to a 7th question asked by Srijana, are expensive buildings a waste of money? Amal responded saying no, and he gave examples like Google's building or House of Ambani, which are all expensive buildings. So it's good to give relevant examples when giving your response. So I would say overall, Amal has a chance of scoring somewhere between 6 and a 6.5 when it comes to speaking. And these are areas where he could have improved. So I hope the feedback helped all of you out there. Whenever you answer part 3 of speaking, try to give longer, fully developed responses. Give examples wherever possible and wherever relevant. So these are the things that I would like to tell Amal about areas where he could have improved on his speaking, and I hope this video helps all of you who are preparing for IELTS. So good luck for your IELTS preparation, and thanks for watching.